Somebody needs them to do it. And you don't need them to wait till next week, next month. You don't even need them to wait till tomorrow. You need them to do some stuff for you right. Anybody know he's able to do it? Lord, do it, Lord, do it. Chapter 17, verse 48. And it came to pass when the Philistine arose and came and drew nigh to meet David, Goliath came to talk to David and fight David. And David hasted and ran toward the army to meet the Philistine. And David got his bag, his pouch, and took a stone out, slung it, hit him in his head, sunk into his forehead, he fell on his face. And David prevailed against the Philistines with a slingshot and a stone, and smote the Philistine and slew him. But there was no sword in the hand of David. I want to read the rest of this. Therefore David ran, stood up on the Philistine, took out his sword, drew it out, shoot the man, and cut off his head. And when the Philistines saw their champion was dead, they fled. I want to talk about Favor Ain't Fair Part 2. Giants do fall. Look at somebody and tell them giants do fall. I ain't gonna be up here long, so y'all get on this train and ride with me. There's no better example of this premise of favor that is found in this widely told story of the confrontation between David and Goliath. Israel, under the leadership of Saul, was a mighty force. And ever since they left captivity of Egypt, Israel had some wonderful victories, but they also had some messed up defeats. Amalek and his armies were a constant thorn in Israel's side, and the Philistines were against them. And you have to understand, the Philistines were like what I like to call a warlike people. They had a warring spirit. They just like to fight. And I know some of you know some people who just like to fight. They have a war. I got some folk in here.
I love that.
They think they can conquer everything by fighting. But apparently they did not understand, like those of us who are children of God, that if you be still and let the Lord fight your battles. Let me suggest that there are people in our lives, in our circles, in our inner circles that have a warlike spirit. There are husbands with a warlike spirit, wives with a warlike spirit, children that like to fight, co-workers that you fight with. And yes, may I suggest there's even some church members, folk that ain't never happy unless they're in a confrontation, folk that don't know how to do nothing but just argue. about what's right and they argue about what's wrong. They argue about what they know and they argue about what they don't know. Some even argue about what they want to know and think they know. They're just arguing. They like to fight. They fight in the family. They fight in their relationships. They fight in their jobs. They just fight. They ain't happy. They ain't happy when it's playing right. They ain't happy when it ain't playing right. They happy when they got money and they ain't happy when they don't have it. They just like fighting. Just folk that just always want to talk about folk, want to dog out folk. Just like, don't feel like y'all don't know none of them people. Just like fighting. And the Philistines were like that. They thought they were invincible. You got some people that think that they're invincible. They're untouchable. They make a lot of noise, but they think they have no flaws. Y'all meet some people that think they always right? Just ain't nothing wrong with them. They just right. They perfect. You know, and I need to tell some folk in here that think you just perfect. You ain't all that. You ain't all that. Your chips done went stale. Pepsi flat. You ain't all that. Listen, I need to let some people know in here, there is none perfect. There's somebody else that know how to do what you do. My daddy used to preach this sermon that if you don't, somebody else will. You quit treating some folk right and watch how somebody else will come in their life and treat them right. But that was for somebody who's going through some stuff right now, right there. You keep dogging out that man that's being loving to you and see if God won't move you out the way and send somebody. Don't play with me. You keep mistreating that wife and not knowing how to love her. And watch if God won't move you out the way and send her. You keep sitting in the church thinking that if you don't do it, son, it won't get done. Let me prove it to you. Die. And see if God, and I tell folks all the time, I understand that as much as I know Zion Cathedral loves me, I got sense enough to know that if I'll never get to a point to think that I am not replaceable, because just as soon as I die, y'all might mourn for 30 days and then y'all gonna find another pastor. I ain't crazy. I know y'all love me, but I know what. And Philistines thought they were invincible. And you have to understand that there's always somebody bigger than you. They may have champions that are bigger than you are, but I need to tell you the giants will fall. Well, Pastor, how can they be defeated? Well, I need you to understand it's not with your strength. Not with the strength that you have, but with the strength that God has. You've heard it before. Greater is He that's in me than he that's in the world. King Saul in our text has led Israel to a critical situation. It is a crisis. Not only is the army of the Philistines challenging them, but God is doing something in the life of Israel and King Saul.